Hello there, it's Dr. Evelyn here, and in this week's video I am talking about normal versus average and the nuance between those as it relates to our health and how normal isn't necessarily the goal that we should be after, but rather optimization when it comes to our well-being and our health. So let me go into why this is important and a little bit more of the nuance between these words, because in our society and in our healthcare system, we tend to use normal and average very interchangeably, and they're actually quite profoundly different. So let me use this as an example. The average American is consuming 17 teaspoons or 71.14 grams of sugar every day. Okay, so that might seem like, the normal American diet. If you're hanging out with a bunch of people and you're eating a meal, in our society, we are getting that 71 grams on average, right? And so you might start to think that that's really the normal way to eat because that's what you're seeing around you. But if you start to think about the word normal as what is actually not absurd to do, is actually what we are designed to do and what our bodies are designed to handle and the sort of diet that we really need. The American Heart Association recommends that we only are consuming 6 teaspoons or 25 grams of added sugar per day, equivalent to about 100 calories of extra sugar per day. And I would take it even further that our more normal as human evolution and the foods that we were really designed to be eating all the time would be even less sugar than that. So as you can see, if we're basing our diet off of the normal diet or even the average diet, then we are missing out on a huge opportunity to actually be optimizing our health by even decreasing our sugars more. And this example goes across the board in medical establishments and in healthcare. So we say, the average amount of sleep that Americans could get is about 6 hours. And then we say, but really, one should be getting the daily recommendation of sleep is between, 8 and 7 and 8 hours. And even still, that's a range of values. It's not applying to each person individually and their needs, their lifestyle, etc. So there's very few things in science and in healthcare that apply 100% across the board to each person. Because each person metabolizes differently, each person has slightly different DNA, each person has different metabolic needs and demands that they're putting on their body, each person has different body composition, etc. So these values that we're using as averages, that we're stemming, basically measuring whether someone is healthy or not, are always fluctuating with the times of what's the average of what's happening right then. And they're not necessarily going to apply to each and every person. That's why they're usually in ranges, is because not every person is going to fit. So these values we're coming up with based on correlations for risk. So for example, for levels of cholesterol in your bloodstream, they have said that people that have a certain level of cholesterol in their blood are at higher risk for coronary artery disease or heart disease, right? That doesn't mean that that person is going to get it. That means that due to the history and studies of the past, people that are higher than this set range tend to be the people that get coronary artery disease. There are people that are less cholesterol that still get coronary artery disease, and there are people that have more cholesterol that don't get coronary artery disease. So we are really looking at our healthcare values based on averages that we are saying are the normal values, and those are subjective and they're always changing. And so, my question is, what would be the optimal value though? What's optimal for you? What's optimal for your average person, right? Like the sugar. It's probably optimal to have even less than 25 grams a day. 6 teaspoons is still kind of a lot of like white added sugar. Even though our body, that even having that much isn't what leads to heart disease statistically, doesn't mean that it's really optimal for us. So why should we be basing our healthcare norms and our healthcare choices off of these normal values when there's this whole gap of level where we could be even more optimal with our health? So, just something to think about. And I think, that's one of the reasons why with chiropractic, we don't always gel well with insurance companies, because insurance companies base all of their care recommendations off of these studies. And a chiropractor is going to look at the whole picture of the person and from their expertise and say, no, I think you could use a lot more. You could be optimal if you did this and this. Even though the average person uses chiropractic visits 12 times a year for back pain, and that's what works in that range for them. If this person's goals are different and they want to be more healthy and optimal, then they're going to need more. And that is their prerogative based on their goals. And what if their system is slightly different and doesn't react as quickly? Or if their pain sensitivity level is different? There's so many factors that make it different that it's really hard to use like averages and normals to give somebody a really in-depth and specific and tailored care plan. So just some thoughts for you to think about and how this applies to kind of everything in our lives. I'm noticing it in a trend with the things I'm seeing on social media about anxiety. People are starting to think that having anxiety or really severe stress is normal because it's everywhere in our society, and it's considered funny. I see memes about, panic attacks and panicking, and people think it's really funny, but it's actually like really not normal. If you think about the evolutions of human beings, why would it be advantageous for us to be having regular anxiety attacks and panic attacks? That is a sign that your nervous system is overloaded, perhaps, and you don't have to accept it just because a lot of people around you are also experiencing the same thing. You can go to that extra step and say, even though this is kind of normal, and even though the average people are at 7 out of 10 stress, doesn't mean that I have to accept that as normal. I want to be optimal and be stressed less of the time and have my body be more resilient. So we can make healthcare choices based on optimization rather than normalization, and just become aware of how that's been playing a role in your life. I think this is going to be like the least edited video that I've ever made because I am so clear about this concept, and it's something that I think about as a doctor, but that most of the public doesn't really know to think about as a nuance. So I hope it helps. Feel free to drop a comment. Always reach out to me on all of my forms of media. And if you want to learn more, come and meet me, check me out. And I am so happy to answer any questions, chat, shoot the philosophy sort of thing, and subscribe to the channel so that you can always find out more about what kinds of weird thought experiments that I will have up my sleeves. All right, everybody, I love you all. Take good care, and we'll talk soon. Bye.